booties for black girl nerds.
Thank you, Dominic, for your time. I appreciate it. I am a fan of so much of your career, your project. So it really is a pleasure to speak with you.
Thank you. That's very sweet.
Oh, the pleasure is mine. So now we are on to Moonhaven. This is a really cool, interesting sci-fi thriller. Your character, of course, is Paul, and you are policing a planet alongside Kadeem Hardison, who we adore, also who plays Arlo. So before we talk about what's going to happen during the season, there's been a lot of talk of millionaires and people who have gone to the moon already just to see what's up, just for no other real explicable reason. If they called you today and was like, you know what, for season 2, we need you to go out there for some research. Are you down to roll out to the moon?
Yeah, I'm okay with it. I like adventures and I enjoy doing things outside of the norm. I don't necessarily consider myself a thrill seeker, although some people consider some of the stuff that I do to be a little bit of an adrenaline junkie. But of course, I'm interested in the unknown, and a trip to the moon sounds like fun.
Down to one of the taglines of the show, it says that darkness finds a way, and the moon is usually romanticized. Do you have, any kind of grand ideas of what you think the moon would be like? Is it menacing? Is it romantic? If you were thrust into that, what do you think it would be even like?
I think it would be very kind of vapid and a little bit like, being exposed to a great void. I think you're as far away from Earth as you'll ever be. I think it's cold and dark and quiet, and there's not a huge amount going on. So I think more than anything else, you'd experience a sense of isolation, which I don't think you get a chance to connect to that much on planet Earth.
Hmm. I like that. I like that. So now back to the show. So Moonhaven is the exact opposite of that. It's this utopic place where these people are residing before the bridge can connect them to planet Earth. Like I mentioned, you're playing a officer named Paul. Why does a planet that presumably is utopic require policing? And what does that look like throughout the season?
Yeah, up until the point where things start to unfold in an unpredictable way in Moonhaven, I think the idea of a police force is completely different from the police force that we're exposed to on planet Earth. This is a police force that probably is conducting meetings in communities, making sure that people get their voices heard, making sure that everyone's okay. More of a kind of guardian or a warden of sorts. There hasn't been a murder on the moon or a serious crime on the moon for a long, long time. And I don't think Paul, the character that I know, has ever been exposed to anything that significant or serious, So it's different from the police that we know. They're much more kind of like heads of society than the police officers that we know.
Mm-hmm. And as I mentioned, there is an ambassador of sorts, for lack of a better term, who's coming there, who wants to help aid this bridge of bringing the resources that have been developed on Moonhaven back to the Earth. All characters have layers. All the characters are very interesting. As someone who has had a wonderful career of selecting roles that are layered and interesting, how far were you into the reading of this before you knew, I gotta be Paul? This is for me. I'm into this.
Well, we meet Paul at the start of the show, kind of heading towards a crime scene, and you assume that that's going to play out just like normal police officers would do, where they have to see what's happened and make some deductions based on the evidence in front of them and then go solve the crime. But on the moon, they are helped by technology that allows them to tell them exactly what's happened with the crime. So as soon as I got to that point in the show, which was probably within the first kind of 12, 15 pages of the show, where you can point this thing called a chancellor at a body, and you can find out how the body succumbed to death, and if there was a murder, who did it. I thought, oh, this is really interesting. This is a really interesting way of looking at the future. And at that point, I kind of, I definitely wanted to be involved.
Mm-hmm. When you first costuming is always a part of a show like this. When you first got a chance to see you and Kadeem next to each other in the full regalia being offered, how did you react to seeing yourself in that way? You're no stranger to costumes or anything like that, but this one's particularly interesting because it's so kind of muted and like the terrain of what we envision the moon to be like without the utopic qualities. So how did you react to seeing yourself?
Yeah, it was really fun seeing Kadeem and I in our kind of quote unquote police uniforms. You know, Kadeem's my favorite person to work with on set. I think we have a kindred spirit, the two of us. We like to work hard. We like to show up prepared, but we also like to enjoy the day and enjoy the crew and the cast and each other's company. And he's very, very easy to get along with. And Kadeem and I also explored this idea that you don't often see in cop dramas, and certainly in relationships between two male characters, that there is an affection and a love for each other. They tend to be a little bit more kind of, you know, tough, macho kind of guys that don't show that they actually care for each other. And Kadeem and I explored this idea that, like, we should be like brothers. We should be really, really close brothers that care about each other and care about our families and you know, really show a lot of affection for each other. So we're a little tactile. We're caring in the words that we choose between each other. And I don't think you see that too often in these type of shows, and was a really fun thing to explore with Kadeem.
Absolutely. Well, I thank you for your time. This is a fun show. I love sci-fi. I love all of you are participating in it. And this was a great honor to talk to you. Thank you so much.
Oh, thanks, Jeandra. Thanks a lot. I appreciate it.
Take care. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for your time, Joe. I appreciate it. Pleasure talking to you.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you.
I like the tag, one of the taglines from the show was "Darkness finds a way," kind of ironic for the moon. Before we dive into Tomm Schultz and the season, do you think of the moon as a menacing place? The show explores it being a haven of sorts, but just personally, when you look at the moon, do you think ominous? Do you think optimistic, or even any feelings about that at all?
No, I don't. I think yeah, Bella Luna, you know, like the Italian moon. You know, it's mischievous. It you know, controls the tides and the water inside of us, you know. I mean, so I think I probably have a more romantic view of the moon, but simply because I grew up reading John Patrick Shanley and, you know, writers like that who kind of opined on you know, the beauty of this thing up in the air.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So with Moonhaven, as I mentioned, you're Tomm Schultz and you're charged with guarding another character in the show who is named Indira Mayer. And they're in the process of beginning this mission where they want to bring back the people from Haven and the resources to Earth to rebuild Earth. Why? It seems noble in its intention, since everyone originated from the Earth, but why does someone like Indira need protection? And what do you think that Tomm provides, not only in terms of protection, but skill wise that helps aid that mission throughout the season?
Well, why does an important dignitary need a bodyguard? I mean, anybody who speaks out and has an idea or is in the public eye needs a bodyguard. I mean, I used to work as a bodyguard to pay the bills. When I first moved to LA, I was a bouncer all through college, and then I wound up getting jobs as you know, doorman at clubs and bodyguard and, you know, security guard, things like that. So yeah, I mean, important people need security. So that's that. I mean, what about my skill set can I tell you that doesn't give away the rest of the season? I mean, there's a lot of twists and turns, and who you think a character is in the beginning of the season might be the complete opposite by the end. So what's my skill set? I mean, Tomm's sneaky. Tomm is working at a job that is way below his pay grade. There's a reason for that. You know, he's incredibly tough, seasoned. He was a soldier. He did 2 tours in the China Sea, which was like a bloodbath. Um, you know, he was like basically like almost like CIA level intelligence, and may or may not have latent psychic abilities that you know, kind of you have questions about in the first scene when you meet him. So he has the character has a really crazy set of traits, ones that I've never seen put together. It's almost like something you pull out of like an X-Men movie or something. And I thought that was a really fun character to ground and play in this show that is very realistic.
Mhm. There is been a lot of, you know, interest in traveling to the moon. You know, we've seen these millionaires and people making these journeys to the moon. If they called you today and was like, you know what, we really want to immerse you in this role and fly you up to the moon, or would you be interested in something like that for the sake of research, of course?
Absolutely. Period. Even not for the sake of research. Yeah. Are you kidding me? That's incredible to think that
It's possible.
civilians would be able to do that. You know, like when I was a little kid, I would have said, no way, there's no way. But like a non-astronaut goes to the moon like regularly. But here we are. So yeah, of course. That'd be like the opportunity of a lifetime.
I don't know, maybe closer than we think. You know, a couple people already went, you know, maybe we'll go for season 2. We'll do the junket up there.
Yeah, sure.
So this is a wonderful, wonderful cast. Yourself, Dominic Monaghan, Emma McDonald, the list goes on and on. Fabulous, fabulous cast. How immersed were you in reading about the part when you knew, you know what, this is for me, this is something I want to get involved in?
Yeah, I mean, you know, I read the pilot, and I thought it was good science fiction. I grew up reading science fiction, so I know the genre, I know what works about it, what doesn't work, and this is good science fiction, like in a classical sense. It's a good murder mystery, also. So that was easy to see, and also once again, you know, the character that I was reading for myself, I mean, it's really interesting. You know, I don't know where, I've never seen that combination of parts prior, and I don't know if I'm ever going to see it again. It's such a strange, you know, mixture of character traits that I thought would be really fun to take on and try to kind of like seamlessly connect. So I knew pretty much right away. Like I read the pilot, and you know, and then I wanted to talk to Peter. I wanted to see what his idea for it was, because you know, it's hard to pick up tone off of a page. So I really wanted to understand what he, you know, thought about it. And then we talked about the character, and we talked about like who he represents, and you know, how I wanted to make him very intimidating, and I wanted to make sure that, you know, Peter was on board, and you know, kind of with like my instincts about the character, I wanted it to feel realistic, and kind of like scary, like you're not quite sure who this guy is, you know. And Peter was absolutely, and I had like a lot of like kind of specifics about the psychic, you know, the psychic stuff. So it was one of those where I wanted to make sure that he was on board with that too.
Absolutely. Well, I thank you, sir, for your time. This is a really cool series. I like, you know, you look tough. I'd let you bodyguard me for sure. You're looking great in the costume, and it was a lot of fun to watch. So I appreciate you speaking to me. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
There we go. Hi, Emma. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
No, thanks for having me.
Oh, the pleasure is entirely mine. Before we get into talking about Bella, let's just talk about the moon in general. It's been a very, very popular topic outside of art, in millionaires flying to the moon, and people are really interested in forging this path. If the decision came down, where do you lie in that? Do you feel like you could thrust yourself into this new interest in taking new voyages to the moon? And it's really, really a source of discussion in a lot of ways now.
Absolutely. Baby Emma, I say baby Emma anyway, young Emma in secondary school went to NASA. it was up there on my list of like, this is what I want to do for a job. So yeah, no, I'm incredibly interested in it. I did a science degree as well myself, so it's a rich topic for me. But I've
Do
not
you,
seen quite
oh,
explored. Peter's done it before.
I was going to say, since you have a degree, does this feel like a full circle kind of thing? Do you think it was the like the secret, the universe conspiring for you to have this role on the show?
I do, yes, I do think everything happens for a reason, and I feel so honored to have been able to play Bella, and make her my own with Peter and everyone's assistance. No, it's been an absolute joy. Mm.
Mhm. A fascinating show to watch. I too am very interested in the moon and voyages. When we meet Bella, she's very fascinating in that she's a pilot. She seems rather fearless, but as we start our journey, there's something there that's wondering how far beneath the onions we're going to go, how many layers we're going to pull back during the course of the season. What is if you had to describe her, what would you say are her most redeeming qualities? And what would you say is something that makes her maybe have a blind spot or be a little short-sighted?
Mm. She thinks with her mind and with her fists. She is incredibly bright. She knows how to work people. And she says that she stands apart rather than alone, but she does occasionally let people into her inner circle as well. She's seriously loyal. She has a big heart. Um, she is, yeah, many things, and you continue to learn more and more about her as the series goes on. And you will continue to be surprised, as I was when I read the script. But yes, and I think a lot of that as well, and some of her sort of more physical qualities and her wanting to be alone comes from her military background, but also her familial background with her mother and her sister, which we discover more about as the story goes on.
Absolutely. What do you think is so intriguing to people about stories like these? With just exploration, going to parts unknown. Do you think that's always been in the forefront of kind of humanity and thinking about places other than Earth? Because I just love the topic. You received a degree in studying the topic. Why is that so intriguing to humanity?
That's storytelling, and escapism, I think, is a huge thing, especially over the last couple of years with lockdown as well. And the imagination, it knows no bounds. So being able to, travel outside of the world, either through physically doing so or through the media as a platform with books, storytelling. And because we have done it, because it's not completely out of our reach, we're digging deeper into it, like you say, at the moment with billionaires and things like that. And I think so. It's very relevant and it's very real, especially with what's happening to our own planet. And I think Peter Rocco tells that so beautifully in Moonhaven and so poetically, and through the characters as well. I mean, you experience it through Bella's eyes as an outsider, and her take on it. Yeah.
Awesome. When we first meet her, like I mentioned, we're aware that she's a pilot and she's getting ready to undertake a task that just seems pretty par for the course. Nothing really outside of her skill set, but it takes a different sort of turn, and we start to then the mystery and the tension of the season starts to unfold. In the scene where we meet and Bella is going to fly the vehicle to make this run. Can you walk through that scene? Because I can imagine it's shot from so many different angles. There's so many conversations, so many things that are happening so quickly to set the table for us for this season. What was shooting that initial day, that scene like for you?
A lot of fun, because I got to inhabit my spaceship, which is Bella's home, and where she's most comfortable. Got to play with all my different gadgets, including my rings, which I fly with, which I got to take home with me as well and practice. And I don't think we've ever quite seen space travel like that before, using the rings. It's normally lots of buttons or controls. So that was quite freeing in a way, and getting to use your body. It's interesting seeing the start of those relationships and the obstacles that she has in her way with the lies and the walls that she has up, and her cynicism. You get a great sense of her humor. You see some of the technology as well, that's so wonderful, her own music player and things like that. So you get a nice introduction to Earth, but as well the moon as you land, and the differences between them, even from like all the metals and composites that you see on the spaceship to all the landscapes, the sea of tranquility and all of that. So it's such a rich interplay, and you get to see it all so close up on people's faces, which I really like, and their own response to them. So that was a lot of fun. Yeah.
Mhm. And lastly, wow, that time went by really quickly. Man, so lastly, briefly, so the first time you got to see maybe those images of you flying with the rings, and you've been practicing and doing all these things, how did you react to seeing yourself that way?
Elated, so much joy, giddy, powerful as well. And I cannot wait to share that journey with the world. I think it's an exciting one, and I think people will respond really well to it. And I think you can't help but sort of fall in love with her and with Moonhaven, the place. I mean, it's so beautiful, but it's not what you expect at the same time, and there are some dark undercurrents within that. And I think it's sci-fi that we is seeing it in a new way as well. I think it will appeal to loads of different people.
I couldn't agree more. I found myself leaning in early, and the first wowzer, I guess you could say, came maybe around episode 2, and I went, oh, okay, this just turned it up a whole nother notch. So I'm very excited to see how the audience reacts and how this story continues to unfold. But I thank you, Emma, for your time. You are lovely. This is a really cool show, really interesting and unique, and I love sci-fi, so we really appreciate you talking with us.
Thank you.
Better shake your booties for black girl nerves. Better shake your booties for black girl nerves.